Won't you come and tell me when the music ends, when I can leap away and face one god or 1,000, or nothing at all into this blessed bliss of oblivion, when I can prise open this box and release cruel and bitter fury at all the mad fools crowding the door in panicked flight. Watch me and watch me with eyes wide and shocked, with disbelief, with horror, with indignant umbrage to upbraid, and the shouted nays are like drumbeats announcing a truth. The music ends, my friends, my vile, despicable friends, and see me slam the door, slam it hard in all your faces.
Hello, and welcome to Legendarium Green Team's Malazan series, and the second episode of Toll the Hounds, the best book. I am Hurinfan, and I'm joined today by Janath as a boy.
Hello!
And Ashaman.
Hi.
And Befuddled Panda.
Hello, hello.
Today we're covering Book 2 of Toll the Hounds, or chapters 7 through 12, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone have anything to announce or say?
I'm leaving the podcast. That's it. This is my last episode. I've decided I'm done with Malazan. I've been convinced that it's a bad series.
Convinced by whom?
I plead the fifth.
Oh, I got a few things to say.
Yeah.
I just finished the spear cuts through water. Yeah,
Yes.
It's fantastic. Like all of our readers or all of our listeners should read it because it's just beautiful.
I get the feeling that I should read it.
I think you should. I mean, I haven't read it, but after Toll the Hounds, I'm going into that book.
I watched like 60 movies this year. I'm on just weird movie binge. And I watched The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. It was incredible.
Huh.
That was it.
Are you counting down the days, the hours, Hurin, until baby arrives?
There's nothing to count down. I don't know what's coming.
Well, you have your expected due date.
Yeah. Kind of.
How's your wife?
She's finally getting to that miserable phase where she's just tired of it and saying, I think it's coming soon.
Has she been enjoying being pregnant?
Well, you hear stories about just what do they have what are those bridezillas? You hear about women who are just terrible when they're pregnant. They complain about everything. They want things, and she's been fantastic. Like nice. when I hear other people complain about their pregnant wives, or like women even saying, "I did this when I was pregnant," and I was like, ugh. But yeah, she's been great.
I mean, the impression I get from your wife is that she's just amazing all the time, right?
Yeah.
I don't have. Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Why is she with you? I'm sorry.
I don't know. I'm just like the luckiest guy ever, right? So yeah, finally she's just getting miserable, and I'm just trying to make her feel as good as possible.
Yeah. She's almost there to the finish line. Shall we start the episode?
Let's start.
Okay.
Chapter 7. Snell gives Harlow a bonk. Mappo hires the Tregal Trade Guild, who pick up a few new employees. Stani and Gruntle bid each other a tearful goodbye. Murillo and Rallick come to grips with their new places in the world. Duiker and Fisher make a deal to tell the story of the chain of dogs. Scorch, Leff, and Torvald consult with Krupp about finishing their list. The vets recover from their coral milk.
Snell.
That kid, man, such a psychopath.
He needs professional help, and probably a lot of it. Yeah.
Yes.
We could talk about this later. I think we should talk later, maybe in a few chapters, about if Snell gets professional help, if he can actually get any better. Because this is the most sociopathic POV I think we've had in this series. Yeah.
I don't. The guy in Reaper's Gale is, I think, on par at least, right? And he's grown up.
Okay. The snot guy.
What was he like as a kid, though? Maybe he grew into being just a terrible.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh no, you're thinking of no. What was his name? He was in the government, and he just raped people. He met the guy in the corridor, and he's like, "Oh, I could have raped that guy."
Yeah, he killed Troll for no reason.
Yeah.
There's a Teist here.
His name starts with an S.
Back. Yeah. But yeah, Snell could be his son, I think.
I think Snell's worse, actually.
Think so?
Yeah.
I mean, Snell does objectively less bad things, I think.
Well, he hasn't had as many
Yeah,
years to
he also
do them.
doesn't have the opportunity. But like, what redeeming quality did the what's his face in Reaper's Gale have? I don't think he had any, right? Like actually zero.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
they're
he
pretty
was kind of
comparable.
dense. He was just kind of dense and not very. He just didn't really have much capacity to like be empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
like,
Snell's like, I know how these people are feeling, and I'm gonna exploit that.
Panda,
Yeah.
do you have thoughts about Duiker in this section?
I mean, yes, I do. I mean, so like in Toll the Hounds, we're at a part in the series where, so much has happened. We've been with so many different characters and relationships, and we've been able to follow them from, like beginning, quote unquote, beginning to end of relationships. And we're seeing the aftermath. And we've seen some of this in like Reaper's Gale as well. But like here we're back with Duiker, and the chain of dogs was such a massive like emotional journey for us as the readers and for the characters. And it's like, how do you recover from that? And so I am sympathetic with Duiker. And like last time in our last episode, we also talked about like, but he was saved for this one particular job, which is to tell the story of the people in the chain of dogs. And he's in this funk. And I'm like, I get it. I get both sides. I get all these like different sides of it. If I were in his shoes, I would struggle a lot. Like, why me? Why am I the one who survives and has to live with these memories and needs to have like this quote unquote burden, right? I just want it to be over. But if I end it, then I'm gonna feel. I mean, if he ends it, it's really like doing his friends a huge disservice, right? So he's caught in this like really tough place, and that interaction with Fisher was so well done. I love that scene. And the way that Fisher just comes, he recognizes like you need somebody to help you get through this. Like you can't do this on your own. And nobody else was really like understanding of that. At least not that was shown to us. And Fisher realizing and recognizing that this man has a story that needs to be told, but he is too close to the story. He's too close to the people, and he needs somebody to help him, like basically kind of like interview him in a way to like draw out the details of the story so that he has somebody to tell it to, and he's not just like telling it to himself, because when he's writing it down, he's really just like having a conversation with himself. So yeah,
that's me clapping.
Perfectly
put.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. I would also add that there is a lot of people like this in this story, and it seems like a lot of the time what needs to happen to these Malazan characters is just like someone needs to sit them down and just like have a really frank conversation with them, because there a lot of the time characters notice that other characters are really struggling and then just kind of like leave them to it because they don't feel like they can help them, right? And like this is happening to like Endis Salon, this is happening to Seerdomen, this is happening to Spinnock. This is happening. Well, it's like all of the Teist that Stani, absolutely. Like, and like if these people would just talk to each other, it's like almost like a romance. if just these goddamn people would talk to each other, it would be so much easier. But that's not how humans work sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that that section to me was just screaming meta. This
is
why writers write.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up. Honestly, though, I did also pick up on the stuff that Panda was talking about. This was the moment, this moment between him and Fisher. It was setting off all the meta flags for me in a different way.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my god, he's gonna write Dead House Gates. And then later Duiker is with Solara and he displays knowledge of the events of Gardens of the Moon that he's picked up from talking to people around Krul's bar in Darujistan, or listening to them, probably more so than talking, right? Because he's depressed. And I think at one point something comes up from Memories of Ice, and then they sit down at the bar, and she starts telling him stuff from the House of Chains and the Bone Hunters, and I was like, oh my god, Duiker and Fisher are gonna write the Book of the Fallen together, and like they'll sit down to start writing the Chain of Dogs stuff, and it'll expand out to Dead House Gates, and then it'll be like, no, but you need more context for this, and go back and write Gardens of the Moon, and then go forward and like just keep going with the series. And like I was like, oh my god, the author of the series is deciding to write the Book of the Fallen from within the Book of the Fallen, and that's kind of what I got out of that whole interaction. Yeah.
How great was the name drop?
That was awesome.
You go through all of this. We've heard about Fisher like throughout the entirety. I think he's in literally every single book as an epigraph of some sort. And then finally you go through this amazing conversation between the two of them, and he's like, call me Fisher.
No, call me Ishmael. The first time I read this, I was like skipping poems and stuff left and right, except for when they were short or informative. So I just like, oh, Fisher, I guess new character.
Oh my god. And to me it was like, oh, it's like you're in, in the society at the time that Homer is writing and performing his epic poems, and you run into Homer in a bar. Like that was me like reading this stuff for the first time, and Ash is just like, oh, it's a new character.
Yeah. I mean, we are doing a much deeper reading than any person would probably usually read these things. So going back to all the traumatic people, the people with trauma, like the part with Stani and how Murillo comes to her and also recognizes her as, okay, this is a broken person that just needs to process and heal, and this is what I can do for her. I can listen, right? And that was such a contrast to like Gruntle, who is also dealing with trauma, and he goes to Stani hoping that she could be the one to help him pull back and not join the Trigel Guild. But she wasn't able to do that because she herself was like, she was in the same kind of spot that he was, even though they were dealing with pretty different trauma. So, yeah.
Yeah, and she even calls him out on like what he's doing. Like this is a death wish, but then she just kind of like spits on him. Is like, fine, go away. I don't care, because she's like,
she's afraid to care.
Exactly, and like clearly she was damaged even before Memories of Ice, because she acted like this during. She acted like this during Memories of Ice as well.
That was a fart.
That was my cat playing with the door.
Yeah.
Sure it was.
Impressive otherwise.
You want to talk about the Trigel Guild? Because I love that section in this chapter.
Yeah.
Their banter seemed very Malazan-like.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved so first we see the Trigel Guild, and then we follow Mappo going to the Trigel Guild, and we have this nice little, I guess, fan service moment where he's like, the last time I saw this carriage was in Tremolor.
Yeah.
Dun,
oh,
dun,
yeah.
And then we get the two bull brothers chasing after a woman, which is just comedy gold.
Yeah, high marshals of the Mod Irregulars. Come on, give them the respect they deserve.
Well, I think if I said bull brothers, it implies that they're higher marshals of the Mod Irregulars, right?
This is like a completely random tangent, but it is related to something that they were talking about. So they were talking about, I guess, like one of them was like talking about getting a papaya out of his ass or something.
Yeah.
And that was just like that has to be gameplay, right? Like the way that the banter was and how like the things that they were saying. But then that also reminded me, and this is just how my brain works. It's so random. Papaya milk. When I was growing up, I was told that papaya milk was something that women should, especially like teenage girls, should consume because it would help their boobs grow bigger. Yeah. And I'm like,
this young Panda was just like downing a shot of it every time you had any meal.
I mean, papaya milk is delicious. Don't get me wrong.
I've never had it.
Just,
I didn't even know papaya was made milk.
It's a very Eastern Asian thing. No, it's you mix papaya with milk to make papaya milk.
I see.
Yeah. But anyway.
So that's why my boobs got bigger.
The papaya. This book, like, as I guess one of its main themes is just women dominating men in relationships.
I guess.
Like it seems to me that a lot of these, like, okay, not necessarily dominant, but in Toll the Hounds so far, all of the relationships have been very female-led, right? And we see this Torvald. We see,
I love their relationship.
Iskarl and Mogara, although that one's a bit hard to
Torvald twice.
There's the Bull brothers and the woman that they're chasing. I don't remember her name. Precious Thimble, is it?
Yeah.
There's Spinnock and the High Priestesses, both of them. I'm sure there's more than I'm forgetting. Oh, Torvald and the woman he has sex with.
Yeah, that's why I said Torvald twice.
Oh, okay, yes, Torvald twice. Yes, absolutely.
But actually, with Endest, that I would say that he's the one in the dominating there, or
Endest?
At least like, yeah, like because she's the one that wants him to be more attached, right?
I think you're thinking of Spinnock.
Oh wait, what?
Yeah.
Hold on.
I don't know if I said Endest or not, but Endest.
You said Endest, but
okay.
But the guy with the priestess
corrected me. Yeah.
It was Spinnock.
Yeah.
I get them confused because yeah.
Yeah. To that, I would just say, like, in the verbal confrontations between Spinnock and the High Priestess of the Redeemer, it to me,
the Redeemer.
Like
that priestess. Yeah. Okay, and I thought you were talking about the other priestess.
Yeah, so the one that Spinnock really wants is the Redeemer one.
Right. Sorry, but the one right. Okay.
The one from Mother Dark, she also seems to have like the conversational edge over him. To me, even though it's clear that she's on the hook for him.
Right.
Do you think this is like? I mean, is this a response by Erikson about how he can't write women? I don't know. Do people say that?
I think it's a way for him to have a book where women have the power in the relationship, maybe as a response to previous books when.
Well, I mean, let's look at Chalice.
Yeah, Chalice does not have the power in a relationship, unfortunately, but
she's trying to.
She's trying.
She is trying to.
But it definitely adds a lot more nuance to the relationships between men and women that have heretofore existed in the series. I would say
there's been a few as the series has gone on that are led by women as well.
Yeah,
like, within the Bridge Burners.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the couple's name now.
Hedge and
Dataron. Yeah,
three different pronunciations.
There.
Pick your poison.
Yeah.
And that woman from the Barghast, every relationship she had, she was dominant in.
Hitan.
So really just Memories of Ice, honestly. So Memories of Ice, and then this is kind of a sequel to Memories of Ice, so it picks it back up, I guess.
I mean, Crocus has always been on Absalar's hook, right?
Yeah, that too. And before that on Chalices.
Yep. Yeah, it's very rare for a relationship in this series to actually have the man be dominant and be healthy, it seems. I can't really think of any. Maybe like Troll's parents.
Are there really that many healthy relationships? I think we talked about this before.
There aren't.
There are not.
But when there are, it seems like the women are taking charge.
Who wore the pants? Who wore the pants in the what's her name? The girl from Seven Cities and the Claw. I can't.
Pearl and Lestara.
Yeah,
I would say Lestara. Absolutely.
So really, it's just the whole series, honestly, not just this book.
Not that they have a very healthy relationship.
I think this book it's interesting watching all of these plot lines that were fairly separate in the previous books, and now they're like converging into one book, which would make sense because we're getting towards the end of the series, and he better bring them together.
He brings a lot of them together, absolutely.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but a lot.
And some will be brought together in the novels of the Malazan Empire.
Okay.
This book, if you don't read Orb Scepter Throne, this book will have the most unresolved plot lines for you by the end. Because like a good quarter to maybe a third of them are finished in Orb Scepter Throne.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I think
we can talk about it at the end.
There are small hints to things that occur. I would not call them starting anything. It's more like hey, here's a wink to the reader who also read Orb Scepter Throne.
Well, no, Orb Scepter Throne's after this. It's a sequel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's not a wink. It's a. I mean, there are.
You could say the same for either book, though.
No, because
yes,
like Orb Scepter Throne directly continues a plotline that runs through this entire book and ends not unresolved.
Okay,
this sounds like a good topic for the spoiler episode.
Yes,
I agree.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to Stani for a moment. We did get a question from Sun Gamer, like, how do we think the portrayal of Stani as a rape survivor? Like, what do we think about it? I think that, I mean, I have never personally gone through rape, so this is only from like me reading as an outsider and observing. But I think from what Erikson put in, and it's actually not a ton, right? It's actually very percentage-wise, very, very small percentage of what we read. I thought it was very effective the way that he portrayed how this character, like what this character is feeling, what this character is, like how they're processing or not processing what they went through, and just the scene, I guess the imagery of when he describes her looking at the face of Harlow and just seeing the rapist. And like this isn't just like, even quote unquote like, I don't want to say normal rape, but it's like it's even worse because of the circumstances that they were going through in Memories of Ice. And her, to me, how I read it was like, this is a character that is very conflicted because Harlow is her child. It's as much part of her as it is as he is like a part of the person who violated her. And she probably really wants to love this child and wants to care for him. But in doing so, that really conflicts with her hatred for the person who violated her. And that violence is not something that she is ready to like accept or heal from, And so I think it was very effective by using little Harlow to portray and help the reader understand like what Stani is going through.
Yeah, I haven't gone through rape either, or sexual violence of any kind, fortunately. But I have known and been very close to people who have, and it feels real. It feels really real, which I think is consistent throughout the series, honestly. The way that like she is obviously damaged, but she's functional for the most part. She can do things in her life, and yet the way that like this is healed over in an unhealthy way, like a broken bone that hasn't been set properly. Yeah, that feels very true to life to me.
Yeah.
To lighten the mood, I enjoyed Krupp and Torvald Noam sections, and it's not in the subtext that Krupp not so secretly hinted the people who Scorch and Left were hunting after to leave town when they did.
Yeah.
How convenient. It's also nice to have just like someone who's a little bit of an intellectual peer to Krupp, even though Torvald obviously isn't. But like Krupp is like playing with babies most of the time.
He's like, "Oh, does Torvald look tired? Maybe from."
Funny how you managed to come up with all that money. And also, the guy that needed the money was robbed just last night.
It all goes right over Scorch and Left's head.
God, they're so stupid.
I honestly don't really know what the purpose of those two characters are, other than maybe to provide comedic relief.
I think that's it.
But I mean, I could leave them. Like, if they weren't in the book, I'd be fine with it.
They provide comic relief. They're a source of tension between Torvald and his wife. They provide another set of eyes in the as POV section for the Mad Run, Bad Run, and the others with less memorable names.
Yeah.
The most important subplot to this book.
Yeah, so important.
And they the stuff with them and Krupp kind of like gives Steve a chance to like muse on political economy more.
I guess.
Yeah.
And they're really funny. And they actually have real growth, even just in this book.
I've yet to really see the growth part.
I think they could be safely edited out of this book. Not that I don't get anything from their chapters or sections, but like this is a really big book.
Yes.
So aside, okay, but if you're gonna start doing that, aside from the fact that he provides antagonism for the bridge burners, what is the purpose of Humble Measure in this book?
I don't know.
Humble Measure is in this book a lot less than Scorch and Left. But
okay.
Yeah, like that's true. Humble Measure could maybe be cut as well. But like he doesn't spend a lot of time on Humble Measure. He spends quite a bit of time on Scorch and Left.
I guess he spends more time on like the consequences of Humble Measure's actions than he does on Humble Measure himself. But then like I'm also like not really clear like why he's doing the things he's doing fully, I guess. Like just because he wants revenge on the Malazans, is that it?
Yeah. I think that's it. Because of the situation he went through in the city, right? Like that's a pretty traumatic event. And
Humble Measure is the one that is hiring all the assassins to kill the Malazan soldiers.
Yes.
Okay.
But like why isn't he like having them take out the embassy? Why is he targeting the bridge burners?
He goes through this. He thinks that these veterans have been sent in like in a clandestine way to start infiltrating the city and taking it down from within. So he's nipping it in the bud.
I mean, which is what the Malazan Empire does do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that in this case,
he's wrong.
Wrong.
And it is literally what they were doing in Gardens of the Moon, right?
Yeah.
Like literally these exact people. It's true. That's fair.
I do think that Steve missed out on an opportunity to introduce a character. I mean, I'm guessing this character doesn't exist by now. We haven't met them. But, I mean, you come up with House of Nom, and yet you don't introduce a character named Nom.
Nom.
Come on.
That's a good point. I think if he doesn't introduce a character named Om-Nom at some point in the Malazan, then he deserves round sound and round criticism.
That's like kind of knocks it down a notch.
Or Nom Nom. I mean, that would work too.
Yeah.
Nom.
I do have a question, and I just a clarifying question. Gorlas, whatever. Chalice's.
I said Gorlas Viticus.
Okay. Chalice's husband. He's gay, right?
Seems like it.
I think he's either gay or asexual. Honestly, I
Okay.
was leaning towards asexual.
Oh, okay.
His only mistress is power.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression he was gay.
Okay. I think asexual
He's not interested
makes
in
sense.
Chalice sexually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not like he was also interested in other women sexually. Because she specifically said his predilection, and I was like, okay, that means more than just he's not interested in her personally.
Yeah, honestly, that might imply that he is interested in other, maybe children.
Oh.
All right, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised for Gorless. I think this is a very wholesome post-orgy scene that we have with the veterans, right?
Was that this chapter?
That was this chapter, and the beautiful. I guess it's dramatic irony. I don't know if anyone actually knows what dramatic irony is, but of Anstey getting what he wants, but never being able to remember it.
Oh, see, this just makes me even more upset about what happens later in the book.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Chapter 8? I got a couple things to say. First of all, in this entire book, in the Darujhistan chapters, it usually opens and ends with a corrupt, omniscient narrator speaking in very poetical terms, I suppose. I highlighted every single version, and I wrote in my notes, I love these parts, and that's all I'm gonna say. They're beautiful, and I could reread them.
I skimmed those.
Oh my goodness, what is wrong with you?
It's really easy.
What did you skim?
The corrupt narrations.
Oh my god, that's like the best. Some of the best parts of the whole series.
I agree.
Panda, I understand why you did it, and I don't blame you. But
I want to know the plot.
Yeah, totally fair. There is some plot like secreted in them, but for the most part, yeah, they're just kind of pontifications.
It's not secreted in them; it's literally in them. It's just told in a really beautiful way.
Sure, I really appreciate how it really conveys how Krupp, while being a silly man himself, has a deep understanding of the pain that everyone is going through, and like he really gets it.
Okay,
and that comes through
that part
with
I
these
agree.
paragraphs. Yes,
but also a lot of the plot is in those parts, isn't it? Like, doesn't he like frame scenes a bunch and like give interpretation and like give setup for the scenes that are important to the plot?
Here, let me read this part. The very, very small part of it. The wagon rolled on its way to the mines. Harlow, who so loved the sun, was destined to wake in darkness, and mayhap he was never again to see the day's blessed light. Out on the lake, the water glittered with golden tears, if the sun might relinquish its hard glare, and for this one moment weep for the fate of a child.
Okay, let me clarify. It's not that I just like skip them. Like, I read them. I just don't dwell on them. Okay, I might read a little faster sometimes if it's too long.
I think these are sections where it would really benefit from having someone read to you.
I know.
I think it's easy to miss how good they are if you're just reading with your eyes.
Okay, fair.
Like a lot of poetry, for me at least. That's super easy.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah.
The narrator does them in Krupp's voice, so it really hammers it in, like when you're switching from like the regular narration to the Krupp narration, and when you're reading it with your eyes, sometimes you might miss it at first and have to like skim back and recontextualize. But the narrator like does it for you.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest. Most of the time, I don't realize it's Krupp saying things. Next chapter.
Chapter 8?
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, sorry. There's one more thing I want to read. Oh, okay, I want to read it. The bard leaned back, retrieving his tankard. It begins with you, he said, and it ends with you. Your eyes to witness, your thoughts alone. Tell me of no one's mind. Presume nothing of the workings. You and I, we tell nothing, but we show.
Yeah. Meta.
I mentioned this in the group chat, but I just want to throw this to the listeners. The Call Me Fisher, really reminiscent of Moby Dick, right?
Yes.
Probably a deliberate callback. I like it.
The part where he tells Draker, let us fashion an epic to crush the hearts of 1,000 generations.
Oh, it's so good.
It is.
That's this series.
That's the series. That's the series. I certainly hope this crushes the hearts of 1,000 generations.
He has high aspirations, no?
Yeah, which is good. I like it. Chapter 8. Karsa dismantles the roving kingdom of Skathandi. Endas Salan goes on a hike. Spinnik Darav visits Enamander and 2 high priestesses. Namander and co have an encounter with Gothos and set free an elder builder of Azath houses.
Before we dive in, I just have to say, Ash, I admire your ability to just distill like thousands of words into a few sentences.
It's I don't want to say it's like a super challenging thing, but like there's definitely a trick to it, and it's while I'm going through these, it definitely takes like, okay, but is this? There's nothing happening in this part. They're just talking. I like this chapter, but how am I going to like frame this as a plot event?
Yeah.
I can't. So I leave out a bunch of those things because it's just, oh, character A talks to character B, and this doesn't have an impact on the plot directly.
Mm-hmm.
You lean into the pithy a lot to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the I actually I like the longer summaries more as somebody who's like the ones that they do into very big books from the perspective of somebody who's like trying to remember what happened in the chapter so I know what they're discussing. But like from the perspective of like wanting to laugh while I'm listening to something, like yours are clever and funny and theirs are just like straight, like they play it like super sober and super straight, and yours are always like really funny and like I get a little chuckle out of them, you know. So there's a balance there between the two. It depends on what you need out of it, right? But if you're looking for a laugh, it's Ashes all the way.
Well, to add some balance, I think it sucks.
What?
Very
Hurin's
good.
being a dick.
Yeah, like if I was given these for my plots, like for my actual plot summaries for these episodes, it probably wouldn't be very helpful. But it doesn't matter because I'm the one making the summaries. I'm rereading these chapters and refreshing my mind like the day of, anyways. So
I prefer yours as well.
Okay, getting into the actual chapter, I really enjoyed the Karsus stuff in this chapter.
Oh man, he just walks up and everything falls apart.
I love the fact that he killed him with words. It's like, could you imagine Karsa killing someone with words like, I don't know, 4 books back?
He, like, even better, like, he kills him with just his presence. Like, the river gods that are animating the captain are just like, they're just like, holy hell, we need to get out of here right now.
Dude, like, I read this chapter and I was like so upset with Steven Erikson because like I looked back on like how much I hated Karsa in book 1 of House of Chains and like just how absolutely amazing he is as a character and how much I love him and how he like manages to make me laugh and like make me like feel awe and make me like feel like he touches my heart, and I'm like, how can you do this to me, Steve? How can you do this to me with the guy from book 1 of House of Chains that I hated so much, you know?
I mean, so it's not just that Karsa is like this super powerful character, because if it were just that, like, I would be like, okay, this is getting old. But because we also like get his logic of what he thinks, like why he's doing what he's doing, and also because he is a bit righteous and he's taking down like, you know, despicable people.
And he's sympathetic because like,
yeah,
you're like, well, I like civilization kind of mostly, but like he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I mean, we have
I get it.
That.
I understand. It's kind of, he's got a bit of a Thanos complex going on. And the part where he was talking about I have it here. He says, well, he's thinking to himself, he would tell his people all this. He would make them not his followers, but his companions. And together they would bring civilization to ruin whenever and wherever they found it. Because for all the good it created, its sole purpose was to breed followers. enough to heave into motion forces of destruction, spreading a tide of blood at the whim of those few cynical tyrants born to lead. Lead, yes, with lies, with iron words, duty, honor, patriotism, freedom, that fed the willfully stupid with grand purpose, with reason for misery and delivering misery in kind. And it's just it's still so relevant to our society today. And especially when I think about like how toxic social media has become. And honestly, like the whole point of any person creating content a lot of times is to gain more followers, because with more followers you get more power, right? Like an influencer, for example, like just the title of influencer conveys it all. And that really like hit home. And then also, like after reading book 2 in Toll the Hounds, there's this parallel with Calor and how they are so similar in their like ideology, but they are so different as characters.
I was noticing those similarities this time as well, and I didn't notice them on the first read.
Wouldn't like the conversation between Karsa and Calor be like the most interesting thing in the series?
I agree. I was thinking the same thing.
I just want to quickly note, oh boy, we're making a podcast that we're encouraging people to listen to. right? Like, and like, I'm not saying that this is a worthless endeavor, but like, it's so hard to escape the criticisms that Karsa has. Like, we exist in this, and it's difficult to see how we could not.
Yeah. I'm gonna go delete all of my social media now. I'm just kidding.
I also like that, like, when he does ridiculous and absurd things, like, you know how people talk about whether you're laughing with somebody or at them?
Yeah.
I feel like early in the series, you're mostly laughing at Karsa, and then as it goes on, he continues to be just as absurd, but like something changes, and you're both laughing at the absurdity of Karsa, but also you're kind of laughing for Karsa rather than with him, because he's not laughing usually, but like you're kind of like you're like cheering him on, but also you're not seeing how silly it is sometimes, and how like just like over the top ridiculous it can be. I don't know. He's just like this like monstrous deific force. It's so crazy. I also really like all of Samar Dev's criticisms of him, and how she melds like criticism with like in this little thing here, we're in her head, and it's witness, he would say, in full expectation of just that. He wanted his every deed observed, as if each set of eyes existed solely to mark Karsa Orlong, and the minds behind them served, to the exclusion of all else, to recount to all what he had done, what he had said, what he had begun, and what he had ended. He makes us his history. Every witness contributes to the narrative, the life, the deeds of Toblakai, a narrative to which we are each of us bound. And like it's so nice. And like at the beginning, when he's saying witness every time he does anything, it's so doofy and silly, and it comes to this, you know. Sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was saying that like nearly every time that she talks about Karsa, it's always a mixture of slight admiration with just I don't know, a mocking contempt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Samar Dev is like one of the more honest interlocutors in the series, I think. And the inflection point between like I don't think that Karsa was ever like totally doofy. Is that word he said? I think so.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Like he's not ever entirely like this. Like there's hints of what he becomes in like the very first sentences with him, I would say.
You mean in Dead House Gates or in House of Chains?
House of Chains. Yeah, it chronologically, not published order. But like he does so much growing, and at the same time there's like a huge tension between his calling out for them to witness and his wanting people to
not follow.
Exactly.
I was thinking about that too.
Because he knows he's a special person, seemingly. Otherwise, he wouldn't be asking everyone to witness everything he does. But and like he's I think he's clearly implicitly recognizing this within himself. But he's also spouting, "Oh, hey, we everyone should be their own person. Civilization is bad." And the conflict within his own character is also really very interesting, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he is a cult of personality. Like, that's what he is.
That's a perfect segue into what I was about to say. And that the passage I just read from Samurai Dev's perspective it's like, you know, in the meta physical reality of the series, like she's describing a path to ascendancy.
Well, absolutely.
So, I mean, not necessarily saying he is an ascendant or he's not, or will be. I don't know. I don't know what level he's at. I know, but I know he's done some crazy shit. So.
I mean, he's like at this point in the series, if we're talking from like a mechanistic point of view, like he's definitely either ascendant or near ascendant.
Yeah.
Of course, mechanistic points of view don't really work very well for Malazan.
Right. It's a weird. It's kind of a weird series in that way because like you get this impression like that the power level is supposed to be like, oh, the elder are supposed to be more powerful than everything else, but then elder beings get their butts kicked by younger ascendants all the time, and then like all the ascendants get their butts kicked by mortals. Like Karsa goes to fight Akarium, and Mappo just has a club, and like it's like club trumps ascendant, and like you know, like it's like I don't know.
It was a very cynical line of thought. I forget whose thought it was, but it was creation demands destruction. Survival demands that something else fails to survive. No existence was truly benign. And like, I agree.
Yeah, there's an ancient Greek philosopher who said that everything is fire. And then of course, after him, I think, maybe it was before, another one said everything is water. Which, yeah.
Yeah.
But the guy who said everything is fire absolutely believed that. So
it is something that I am more and more like conscious of. Like, it can be very tiring, and I guess maybe this is what people with anxiety like is like. Everything that I do, I'm just like analyzing, okay, what are the pros and cons of this? How is this going to impact like myself, other people? It's very exhausting.
To add a physics tangent, the most likely way currently that we think that the universe is going to end is heat death.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that humans do, everything that happens, accelerates heat death.
Great.
Because yes. So, from a very real perspective, the more living you do, the more life you're stealing from the universe.
Hey.
Thank you for that.
I know, isn't that a wonderful thought? Like, like the universe is very big and there's lots of energy in it, but yeah, the more entropy we cause, the quicker everything kind of falls apart.
Cool.
And I only mention that because this is also like a central tension of the book, and I think of the series, the order versus chaos, life versus chaos, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stealing from each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that.
I don't know how much we're going to talk about this, but I really enjoyed the conversation between Anomander and Endist Salon.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing Anomander from Endist's perspective, and it giving a lot of humanity to Anomander, because he's staring at the tapestry of their history. And on the tapestry, do you think it was still just ruin on the tapestry, or do you think it was one of the Leosin?
I think it was Silchus.
I thought so too, but they said he had onyx eyes, and doesn't Silchus have red eyes?
Oh, that's true. I don't know.
Either way, he was betrayed by somebody, and Endist just saw him with an infinite compassion, being able to forgive somebody and make excuses for somebody, even though they did something that to him. I just thought that was really nice.
I really get the sense that like Steve meditated for like a week before he wrote anything about Anomander every time, because like every time Anomander shows up in this book, it's so profound. And there's so much to dig into. Again, Animander says almost nothing.
Right after that, he's talking about the Redeemer, and he's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
really admired him, but I have a kind of a problem with the theology because it demands nothing from the worshiper," and it was just a really great convo.
So I have two follow-ups. So when Animander was saying, like, looking at the tapestry, and he was saying he did not mean it, and then Enda says, "Your ability to forgive far surpasses mine, Lord." And then Animander says, "The body follows the head, but sometimes it's the other way round. There was a cabal, ambitious, hungry. They used him, Endus. They used him badly." So that person that they're talking about that got used badly, I thought they were talking about maybe the cripple god, but that's not what they were talking about. Yes? Okay.
No, so Endist is recalling back to the Teist Civil War, basically, with
Okay.
all of these. Yeah,
To be
which is
constantly on his mind.
yeah, it's before the crippled god.
Right. Okay.
Unsure
Before the
how
crippled god was brought to this world.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And then the part about the whole Redeemer and the difference between redemption and absolution, I was like, you're calling out Christianity. At least that's how I read it.
Some flavors of it for sure.
Yeah. Which I will just say, I think that that's something that I would just need to like dwell on and sit with for a long time and not to like understand it, but to figure out what my stance is on it. Like, how do I agree? Do I not agree? What parts do I not agree with? You know? And I don't have the mental capacity or time right now, or like emotional ability.
I think it's something that Christianity has been struggling with for 2,000 years now.
A lot, yes.
Yeah, I know how I answer these questions, and I think become satisfied with my answers. It's like a big part of why I don't actually have a problem with the idea that free will being an illusion. I know a lot of people do, but if you accept that, then you don't actually have to deal with these problems very much, which is useful. But also, yeah, like it's very much human nature to dwell on these questions. Like, if you do horrible things, can you ever be redeemed? And he explores this all through the book, of course. The character of Seerdomen being, I think, a great example, because Seerdomen, we never have seen him do anything actually horrible besides like the murder here and the priestess. Yeah. So Seerdomen participated in like one of the most horrifying empires that we've seen in this series. Well, probably the most horrifying, right? Like they're eating people and raping people all the time. So presumably he was complicit in a lot of those acts, and he saw terrible things, and he didn't do anything. But are we spending a lot of time being very angry at Seerdomen for these things? It doesn't seem like it. Meanwhile, like if characters do terrible things that we see on screen, we are very angry at them for a very long time, like Malakrel. And then there are characters like Karsa who do terrible things, and then we like them anyways.
Yeah.
Has Karsa done anything to redeem himself? Unclear.
Right, he's grown, but that's not quite the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away the rapes and the murders.
Exactly.
And then as far as Seerdomen, he's the guy, he's the Seerdomen from Memories of Ice that interacts with Talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was confirmed. I think this chapter, yeah.
Does he do anything especially horrible or good in those sequences? I forget. It's been so long.
All we see of him is that he's nice to Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gives him his coat.
But he is also in a high enough position that he's taking care of the Panian Seer's most valuable prisoner. So how did he get there? What did he do? It's implied in these chapters that he's been complicit in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
He certainly feels very guilty about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't think that he can ever be redeemed at all.
Right.
Period. But he's trying to do some things that he considers to be good, even though they're
They're pretty bad.
They're morally compromised, but he thinks that he's taking himself, like the sins onto himself, so that the Tice don't have to, and so that he can prove to them that humans can sometimes police themselves. So clearly he thinks that he's doing something ethical somewhere along the line.
Which is an echo of Whiskey Jack, right?
Yeah.
Is that pointed out in the sequence?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
I was like,
about it.
Yeah. There's no way I came up with that, right? It just seems like something that was in the narrative. So yeah, I forgot who brought it up. Yeah, it's an echo of Whiskey Jack, and the Tice, of course, response to it is, "Oh, that wasn't necessary."
So this is a great chapter. We haven't even talked about the best character.
This is what I'm saying. I love
the Azath house builder. No.
Yeah.
And Amander.
And Gothos, of course.
I have a problem with part of that. But I mean, I got really excited when I realized who Namander was interacting with in that whatever other realm looking thing. And then it also was explicitly pointed out by Gothos that, hey, now there's an Azath house into the blood of dragons. And I'm like, okay.
And Amanda did it.
This is going to be important later.
Yeah. What are the implications of this? I don't know.
But there will be.
Yeah.
And I'm making cakes and I'm not giving you any.
Oh, man.
But my issue was, so they talked about like placing the last stone, and like the Azath house builder was inside the Azath house building it. We don't need to be outside for this final stone to be placed. And the man was like, no, I'll do it. I'll be here and you go. My problem is when the builder pushes the stone out to Namander, I mean, at some point that stone must have like clicked into place, right? Like that would have been it.
What if it's long and he moves it out like this?
But he built the thing. he could. I
struggle thinking about the logistics of this scene every time I read it.
Yeah, the logistics really bother me.
I don't see any reason why they couldn't have both escaped, but I don't know. Maybe there's a masonry thing that we don't know.
No, they're totally. He even said we can both go. Commander was the one who was like, "No, I will stay.
I'll sacrifice myself."
No, wasn't it
live an eternity of suffering for you?
Didn't he justify it by saying he didn't know where the house was going to pop out or something like that? I don't remember. There was something.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't think about it that much.
So my other thing with this scene is like, does Gothos just get to come and go as he pleases? As like he's the guardian, he's the guardian of the dead house in Malaz City, and like he's just like here in like a Jaghut place, and he's like doing whatever with this Azath builder, and then like does he go back to the dead house after this? Like does he just like have a free pass to come and go like Kellenvet and Dancer used to? But like he's a guardian. What happens if somebody trespasses in the dead house while he's on Genabacchus doing this stuff for some reason? Like,
yeah, like Gothos is essentially Krupp, but for like the entire Malazan world, where Krupp is just mostly for Darujhistan, right? And Gothos has been doing it for like millions of years, maybe. So he's figured out everything there is to know, like about these places. I think. Maybe not.
Well, he wrote the book on it, right?
He wrote many.
He's like the Herodotus of the world, right? Like he like wrote like the whole history and like, or maybe the Aristotle even, because he has like a lot of his books deal with like which species are where and where they came from, and like like the Jaghut tyrant stuff was in part of Gothos's folly.
And the distinction between him and Aristotle is that Gothos is right about a lot of things.
He doesn't think some people are just born slavey.
Just slavey, yeah.
Wasn't Aristotle right about a lot of natural science stuff? Like later on, like
he was closer than he should have been. That's for sure. And like his philosophy is still very much relevant. And like virtue ethics is an entire branch that kind of sprang from him. But he also got a lot of stuff wrong, which is to be expected because he did he wrote a lot of things, and he didn't have any data to back any of it up.
Right.
He was just thinking this is how it would be nice if it was like this, and also warm climates and cold climates and all that stuff.
Yes, well, Aristotle didn't have the benefit that Gothos has of living forever.
Yes, exactly.
And I doubt Gothos thinks he got it all right either. He seems pretty self-deprecating.
Yeah, but also contemptuous of everybody else.
Yeah.
And like he feels
I get a feeling that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, though, yeah?
Yes,
yeah,
but also he's like one of the biggest meddlers in the Malazan universe. Like he's always messing with things. And clearly he's doing that because he thinks he knows best. Otherwise, why would he be doing it?
But isn't part of his
for a joke?
Isn't part of his philosophy that like most of the things he did to meddle like that stemmed from an arrogance that he no longer holds to, and that he like tries to teach other people that they should let go of that kind of arrogance and like not continue to meddle?
Yeah, but he still is meddling, right? And then like pretty big stuff. Like he's kind of keeping this elder being prisoner for like a long time. He's allowing him to be a prisoner when like clearly he could get him away. I think.
I think this might be a better conversation after we read Carcanus.
Yeah, I do have problems. I am having problems like trying to justify what I'm saying because I'm like, oh, some of the things I'm drawing from are from Blood and Bone, and some of them are from Carcanus. You know, like it's like all over the place.
I have a question. Spinnick said that he was away for a time on another journey on behalf of Animander hunting a dragon. Am I supposed to know which dragon he was hunting?
I had the same question.
I don't think so. Maybe he was hunting Olar Ethel. That's my only. I don't have anything to support this. But.
Though at the time, if he was in the wrong place because at the time she was heading to the meeting.
This might be one of those things where Steve dropped a little hint that he wanted Cam to pick up on, and it just never came up or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then it goes, conversations like the one he'd found at the end of that quest were not worth repeating. So maybe he's like, yeah, this could have been cool, but nah, the storyline didn't end well.
Spinnock is like a guy that's had a lot of really interesting adventures that we'll never hear about.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of Spinnock, how do you feel about the age gap relationship in this? Besides female-led relationships, it seems like there are awful lot of old men paired with younger women in this. The other most notable one being Dwicker and Solara, although obviously they're not really in a relationship at the moment.
But isn't Spinnock not really in a relationship with the priestess?
No, but he's like, oh, I've given my heart to her, even though we've only talked once, and I would die for her.
Things that I could say, but you know what? I'll just be honest with you. I don't really care.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really care either. I really like that bit when he was talking about Duiker and Scalara, because she was holding him by the arm like they were a couple, and because they weren't, it really made him feel really nice. So Solara is such a nice lady. I like her so much.
She is.
Yep. Yeah.
Her little the next chapter, right, where she's like, she meets the Phoenix End people and she's all self-deprecating. And
yeah. Do we want to move on to chapter 10?
Yeah.
We're on chapter 9. Yeah. Or we are moving to chapter 9.
Chapter 9. Barathal decides to force a little free market capitalism down Durgistan's throat. Scorch and Left seek gainful employment as gate guards with Torvald as their boss. Murillo gets put on the case of the missing Harlow, who has made a new friend. Chalice finds a bit of comfort in the arms of her husband's dear friend. Solara teaches Cutter a lesson and forces Dwicker out of his slump.
Since I already mentioned Solara, yay, Solara.
I really appreciate how, yes, Dwicker is deeply in pain and he's traumatized, and there's probably nothing that can really fix that. But you know what helps? a really beautiful
Attention
woman
from a lady.
taking interest in you. And that's just, I think that's how male brains work, right? Like that's how heterosexual male brains work. That's how mine works. Like, yeah, even if I'm feeling very terrible of myself, it just does feel nicer when a pretty girl is talking to you.
Yep.
First, Barathol, love him. Second,
he's the best. And Shower.
yes. Second, Harlow meeting David Anon Toll. I probably butcher that, but I love that.
Talon.
I was not expecting it.
Yeah, the old inventor guy. Yeah.
It was a nice convo.
It's like the first guy to invent tools, it seems like.
I'm going to get him some splints. I just got to find out first, what are splints? So how do you think this happened? Do you think, like, maybe he fell down, broke his legs, and he was still alive for a while, and then the ritual of Talon happened?
Yeah.
And he was still alive, so he became part of it?
That must have been.
Like
just like, I don't know what's going on.
Like, how
Why
is
am I
he
still
not
alive?
just insane? Yeah, he had heard about it, though. Like, he knew that the ritual was going to happen, I think.
Right.
So why couldn't he just turn to dust and float out of here?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, there's no wind, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe he didn't know how. He wasn't there.
Yeah, that's also true. And it's also, like, very rocky. I don't know how well the Tlan must travel through not dirt.
Because
So
Erikson didn't want him to.
Yeah.
Maybe his legs are broken. You can't do it if your legs are broken. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, his legs were broken, so metaphorically his ability to travel was also impaired. And as we know, metaphor made real.
There was a character, Gaz, which, I mean, I don't really know what the point of Gaz is, to be honest.
Just you wait.
Okay.
Rafo.
Well, he had a part in here where I wanted to focus on. He said, well, he was thinking, his failing is not in being inarticulate through some lack of intellect. No, this mind is most finely honed, but he views his paucity of words in both thought and dialogue as a virtue, sigil of rigid manhood. He has made brevity an obsession, an addiction, and in his endless paring down, he strips away all hope of emotion and with it empathy. When language is lifeless, what does it serve? When meaning is rendered down, what veracity holds to the illusion of depth? Bah, to such conceits, such anal, self-serving affectation. Wax extravagant and let the world swirl thick and pungent about you. Tell the tale of your life as you would live it. And I was like, this is hilarious. It's just such a juxtaposition of, like, first, how many words he used to talk about brevity. And also, I am reading about this in such a large tome of a book.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
And from Krupp, one of the most long-winded characters.
Yeah.
Because that's Krupp's narration there.
Right?
Oh, is this Krupp's narration?
Yeah. The parts you skim, you know?
I mean, I can't tell if it's Krupp or not when he doesn't say, and Krupp says blah, 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 or Krupp does blah.
Well, the Ba didn't give it away.
I don't know.
Like, the narrator has no tone normally. So, like, whenever the narrator's, like, giving flavor and opinion, it's Krupp.
Thought that was weird. Okay. I guess I just did not pick it up that it was Krupp.
I think that the narrator has like a wistful, sad tone to him, but definitely not as pronounced as Krupp.
Well, so for this part, I also thought it was like Erikson making a point about brevity because, I mean, he is a short story writer. Yet he's writing like the largest books I'm ever reading, and
his short stories are long too.
So this made me think of like how much we like yeah, so obviously I thought of like Erikson's clearly making an argument about his own writing style here, right? But like also it made me think about like how everybody like modern critics and audiences like they value brevity and getting to the point and having these like straightforward narrative structures that are like pared down. And like often they quote Polonius to justify it, right? And I was like, but in Shakespeare, like those plays are so like from that perspective bloated and like full of like, you know, stuff that if you submitted Hamlet today, like people would be like, oh, you could trim down this scene with the players and this guy like reciting from this poem about Rome and like blah, blah, you know what I mean? Like it's just like that, like obvious. And Polonius is a idiot in that play, you know. So it's
he's the most long-winded character.
Yes, right.
Shakespeare himself is poking fun at it. And
right.
Yeah, and like he's always spouting these aphorisms and like trying to tell his son how to live his life, and at the same time, Polonius himself is like deeply pathetic and like he never follows his own advice. And yeah, so that's it. I was about to draw the same comparison, although I don't know if I would say that. Oh my, I don't know if I would say that the culture values brevity all that much, given the nature of modern expositional styles being so repetitive. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Well, wait, repetitive doesn't mean
I don't think
doesn't imply a certain level of pared down versus like bloated.
It's not brevity to say the same thing 3 times, right? It's not, if you repeat something a lot of times, you're not being brief. And if you say something 3 times over, that's not very pared down, right?
I don't think that's necessarily modern prose style, though.
I think it's a lot of what's popular in the fantasy genre.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, so one of the things that I thought was really interesting is when he says, you know, when you pare things down and strip away all hope of emotion and with it empathy, right? It's like it just becomes so sterile. Like the words become sterile. And here is where I may lose a lot of listeners. Okay? But I'm going for it.
I'm so excited.
So you could say something like, just use the word hickey. But instead, an artist uses, I knew you'd linger like a tattoo kiss. And like just the difference between those two, like one is definitely more poetic. It makes you like, it draws you in. You want to know more. It's very beautiful. But if you just pare it down to like, well, you could have just said, you gave me a hickey. It doesn't sound as nice. And I'll tell you, I just quoted Taylor Swift. There is this on the internet. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, which I can't say that I am a Taylor Swift fan. I don't hate her. I'm not
They
a
have a
huge
nickname,
fan.
Swifties or something.
I am not a Swiftie, but I have come across on the internet just like people pointing out like why she stands out as an artist. Like her lyrics are so poetic, and it's just, who knew that Steven Erikson and Taylor Swift would have this in common? And there is a Reddit thread where people do just point out examples. Like Swifties like analyze her lyrics like we analyze what Steven Erikson is writing and saying here, you know? Like that's how deep and rich her lyrics are. Anyway.
I so much love the absolutely out of left field comparisons you make with Malazan and other things. That's honestly, it's amazing. I as a counterpoint to what Krupp says, I think that there's also a lot that is lost in impact when you say too much.
Yes, true.
And Krupp, I think, sometimes says too much.
I also agree.
Yeah, like would anyone disagree? And there's also a lot to be said for not telling people how they should feel. Not that Krupp does this necessarily, but for mood, one of my very favorite authors is Guy Gavriel Kay, who almost never tells you how you should feel about something. He simply describes it, and
He
sometimes
shows it
describes
to you.
how exactly. sort of. But like he can convey very, very specific moods and feelings, a lot of times very concisely. And
he doesn't tell you how you should feel. He just makes you
exactly.
feel sad as heck. That guy makes me cry so much, more than Steven Erikson does even. I always have this like bittersweet feeling, and I've cried, and I'm just like, Guy Gabriel K, what are you doing to me?
I finished River of Stars last week, and I am so not over that ending.
Oh, interesting. I haven't read anything of his yet, but
I'm still not over Tagana, and I read it like 5 years ago.
The Lions of Valor Song is one of the best books I've ever read.
Like, it was really good.
Absolutely.
Can we talk about Barathol?
Isn't he the best?
Yeah.
He is great.
What are you going to say?
Yeah, he's coming in here. He's a libertarian about his trade practices. Tell me what you love about him.
Well, so his interaction
is this the chapter where he
with the clerk.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
With the clerk of the blacksmith guild. When I was reading that interaction, I was laughing and also wanted to cry and was also very angry. Like I had all of these emotions because unfortunately it is so relatable. So the whole context, right, is like, hey, I'm new to Darujistan and I like want to set up a blacksmith, like my smithy, right? And the guy's like, oh, well, you need sponsorship. And to get sponsorship, like you have to, in order to apprentice, you have to get sponsorship, but then you can't get sponsorship, except whatever. And it's like, so how can I actually do this? Oh, well, basically you can't. And what that reminded me of is, have you ever seen a job posting for like an entry-level job? And they're like, we're looking for somebody with 5+ years of experience. I'm like, that is not an entry-level job.
This is such a meme with software development.
Sometimes it's for software that hasn't existed for that long.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. That is my point. I think it was like with Go or something, the Go coding language, which has only existed since 2012 to the public. And then people are like, yeah, we're looking for people with like 10+ years of experience in this. It's like, are you freaking kidding me?
The guy who developed one of these softwares applied for a job that asked for more experience with the software he developed than as long as it, and he couldn't like apply for the job because of it, basically.
I love reading interviews where people wrote a library and then they were asked a question about the library and they were denied the job because they didn't have the correct understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I'm very angry is because I throughout my career I've met a lot of people who are like, how do I get into a certain career path? And they're like looking at these job applications, and I've been there, like looking at all these job postings and just feeling like I am inadequate. I cannot apply to this because I do not check all of these boxes. And I mean, there are tons of studies and like articles out there about like specifically how women have a different reaction than men, and men will be like, sure, whatever, maybe I fit 3 of the 10 things, I'm still gonna apply anyway. And what I want to say is, for the people who are applying, just apply. Like, it's definitely a no if you don't give it a try. For the people who are hiring and posting these job postings, this is bullshit. Okay? Like, if you're not going to be willing to pay top dollar for a unicorn candidate that you are looking for, then you need to adjust your expectations. And if you're not willing to adjust your expectations, you better be willing to pay that person what they deserve. And also,
I've talked to hiring managers, and I think most of them are realistic. They put these way too hard things to, I guess, filter out the people who aren't as confident as they want, I suppose.
Which is like, it's a whole test in itself.
It's
and
still
that's
bullshit, yeah.
Like getting a job interview shouldn't be like trying to go to the moon. Okay? That's just not how it should be. And so for anybody who is a hiring manager, I don't know who listens to this. If you're a hiring manager, just be realistic. Okay? Look at this job description. Would you qualify for it? Anyway.
I had, not that I got
Rant
the job,
over.
but it was easier to apply to a literal rocket company that I actually got an interview at than it is to apply to many other positions that obviously don't have such high stress
The other
requirements.
thing is, it is also very important to like really evaluate the skills that you have and see how they are transferable to like something that may seem very outside of what you qualify for. Because a lot of times jobs are, can you communicate well verbally and also in written form? And can you act like a professional adult? Honestly, those things are way more important a lot of the times, because you could be like the smartest person and have terrible communication skills, and that person is very hard to work with and nobody wants to work with you.
I think we should put in the description of this episode
job advice at 1 hour 20 minutes in.
I'm sorry, I'm just very passionate about this.
It sounds like arguments that you've had before.
I could tell. So don't forget also the end of that whole conversation. Barathol was like, "And why were you sleeping when I came in?" I do not think I was sleeping. I saw you sleeping, and he just never backed down, and I loved it.
Like it was talking about how the clerk was like obviously physically inferior to Barathol, but he was enjoying like this tiny little bit of power he had over him.
The bullying complex.
Oh boy, that's a bureaucrat right there.
And it's in 2 chapters, but the way Barathol handles the what do they call them, the breakers, was fantastic.
Yep,
I was just like, yeah.
Oh, Barathol, he's really likable in these chapters. Oh man, so we've got to the ethics of employment. Scorch and Left are definitely the type to apply to positions that they do not have qualifications for. It worked out for them here. Thankfully, they found an employer that was willing to work with their deficiencies, and it seems
I think
like
she hired them for their
yeah.
I love when Torvald's talking with the Castellan, and what did the Castellan say? Comparative. Here it is. Perhaps as the captain of the house guard, Torvald stated, I haven't said any word yet, and I'm already promoted. Comparative exercises yields confidence in this assessment.
Yep.
You're just so obviously better than those two.
Oh man. Scorch and Left, it would be hard to hire them for anything.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
although, hey, they get some free healthcare. Which bonus.
It's wrong. Really well. But I love when they hire the 3 of them, and he's like, "Oh, is 25 whatever enough?" And they're just like furiously shaking, nodding their heads.
Oh man. Yep.
Chapter 10.
One last thing. Sorry.
We haven't even talked about Marilia or Chalice or Solara.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot here.
Sorry.
The conversation between Dweeker and Solara is a perfect example of why I love Steven Erikson's conversations, because they will say one thing early in the conversation and then they'll meander a bit and they'll come back to it and state it again in a very clever way. And I just really like reading it like that because it feels real. Sorry, go on.
I'll just interject as well. I really like how Solara, in like I think the most kind way possible, lets Cutter know that his behavior towards her is like really not acceptable. And at the end he gets it. And like he's still basically just a kid, right? And he hasn't had any real relationship. But at the end he gets it, and that's really nice to see.
She was also very succinct in summarizing the events of like Dead House Gates.
This happened, and this happened, and this happened.
Yeah, I had to learn from somewhere.
Do you want to talk about Solara, or what else? What else did you want to talk about?
Marilio.
Or Chalice, Marilio. Oh, when Stani learns about Harlow, that was this chapter, yeah?
Yep.
God, that was heartbreaking. And she just breaks down and cries, and then she starts yelling at Maril. I forgot her name, but Harlow's mother.
Adoptive mother.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
You could just feel the pain.
And on like both sides too, right? And I don't remember who says it, but someone tells Stani that, oh, you've been giving the money to Snell? You know he's a psychopath.
Oh yeah, Gruntle.
Right? He doesn't hide it. Snell, like, obviously Snell's not a good actor. So the only reason for Stani to have done this and not notice is she's like intentionally missing it, basically. Because again, she like can't look at Harlow and just doesn't want to think about him.
It's not just
even though she
Stani,
does
it's
so.
also the parents, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that I had thought about is like as much as Snell is a psychopath, like how much of that is because of his parents and how, maybe they didn't prepare him. They're not like really helping him adjust to having Harlow as an adoptive brother. And I mean, there's not that much given about those two other than, like the dad is
disabled.
Yeah.
And the mother gets headaches, I think.
Right.
And she's taking care of the father, and there's a lot of love there, but it doesn't seem to extend very far to the children, and it's a very complicated family.
Yeah.
And like from like a pragmatic, cold sort of perspective, like it's 100% the parents' fault, no matter how you look at it, right? If you think it's nature or nurture, because nature, well,
That's
they're
true.
the ones that gave birth to him in the first place, and nurture, they're the ones that raised him. So it makes sense that they're unwilling to grapple with the reality of the child that they have.
Well, and
To
the way that
everyone's
Snell,
detriment.
like he is thinking about how he can manipulate his mother, and how his mother won't like believe or accept that her son is such a horrible person.
And he plays into that. He knows that like his parents will always feel guilty for the way that he acts, and that gives him like freedom to act the way that he wants to, and he uses that as leverage against them. And like Snell's a sociopath, but he's right.
Yep.
He's absolutely right about how parents feel about their children and how they feel responsible for everything they did and all of the intricacies of that.
Yeah.
A lot of complexity there. Yeah. Oh boy. Also, Murillo and Stani, they kind of hit it off, which is nice. I like their conversation about the dueling school. Like they both know exactly what's going on here. Stani's not making any master fencers. Murillo is the protege of the best fencer in Drudstan's history, apparently, who only took a student once every like 7 years or something.
Every 3.
3 years, yeah, something like that. And then who also hated fencing. It's good to see, I think.
That's fun. Did you have something, Kieran?
There's one of the Omniscient Krupp narration where it was Murillo consoling Stani, and how she just needed someone to listen to him, and he was the perfect person for that because he knew exactly that. It was just very touching.
Yeah, sometimes you just need someone to listen. And as I said, the people in Malazan are often just not willing to listen. Chapter 10. Brood and Salon spend some time catching up. Karsa and Traveler make fast friends with one another. Seerdomin cleans out the city of treason. Nimander and Co. plan their assault on Bastion.
The epigraph for this chapter is great. Very poetic and lyrical.
Thank you, Fisher.
Very Green Day.
Is this the music when the music ends or whatever?
Yeah.
When September ends.
I liked Crone in this chapter.
Yeah.
She gave a great line. It's not in my nature to grieve. I despise it. In fact, I rail against it. My sphincter explodes upon it.
I laughed at that when I read it.
I was not expecting Kaladin Brood to show back up in this series because I thought I had to go read Return of the Crimson Guard or something to go read more of him.
I don't think he's in Return of the Crimson Guard.
No,
he is not.
Is he in any of the Ice books?
He's in Orb Scepter Throne because it's a sequel to this one.
Right.
Pretty much everyone from this one's in that one.
Okay. I don't know where I got that notion from. Anyway.
I really liked seeing Karsa and Samar reunite. It was funny and endearing.
Yes. Isn't it also hilarious how angry she gets? The fact that him and Traveler make such good friends with each other.
Yeah. She's so angry, and she's angry at herself for being angry.
Yep.
I also thought it was funny how the whole time she's like talking to Traveler about Karsa, and he's like worried about it, and then like he sees what happened with the captain, and he's like, "Well, I'm less worried now. I'm kind of looking forward to it." And she's like, "Don't expect hugs and kisses." And then the very first thing that happens when they see Karsa is he gives her a huge hug. And she's like so pissed about it.
Yeah.
He's so happy to see her.
Suffocating embrace is what it said, and then even Traveler was grinning.
Well, right, because he's grinning because he got the hugs and kisses he was told not to expect.
Yeah, and then Traveler seems to have some high-level knowledge of the early expansion of the Malazan Empire. Do you guys have any theories on
Oh my
how he might have
goodness.
acquired
We're not
this?
going there.
Didn't they already come out and say it at this point?
Yes.
Did they?
Yes.
Yeah, earlier in the
missed
book.
that.
It's Decimal Tour.
Yeah, they legitimately
Altor?
they call him by name earlier in the meeting with Kellenvet and Dancer.
Maybe it's Hood.
It's probably Hood. That's probably it.
Hey, Panda, let me tell you something. When you're listening to the Memories of Ice full spoilers episode, they're like talking about like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna get that that Traveler is Decimal for blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, maybe Yasna will, but I don't know about Panda. And then you had it in like 5 seconds as soon as you met like both of us.
You guys.
That was just a second level misdirect.
Uh-huh. So Janath, you had read the quote about Karsa like witnessing and all that. And that made me like think of a line of questioning, which is like, what is the point of history if there aren't any witnesses, right? Like, history really only exists because of witnesses. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any recording. But that also made me think of
Yeah, Duiker. Anyway.
Does a tree falling in the forest make a sound? If there's no one there to hear it? And I think I have an answer. I think the answer is no. Because sound is created through vibrations in the eardrum. So if there are no eardrums there to hear it, like, it's just vibrations. You wouldn't hear a sound.
I mean, it's still just vibrations if you're hearing it.
That's true, but if you take the word sound literally, like, no.
I think it's very human-centric.
Okay, I'm done.
Cyrodimon's kind of like a murderous Batman. That's neat, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's definitely a vigilante.
Definitely vigilante. I don't think I have anything new to say about him because I said it early. I blew my wad early in the episode. Very sad.
Yeah, that's what I did that too with this chapter.
Well, what is really interesting is that Cyrodiil gives us this perspective of like what happens to an empire after there is a change in power, especially when it's an outside force upsetting the seated power. And it is really interesting because like for some people they're like, hey, life is better now, and others are like, I want to go back to the way it was.
Yeah,
and like
one thing I
have a very hands-off approach.
One thing I was kind of grappling with here is that like there's like sort of an obvious parallel to a lot of reactionaries in various historical circumstances, but the parallel's sort of incomplete because like I think that it's kind of like inarguable from the reader's perspective that the Teist are benevolent. And like in most cases when there's a social change like this and you have reactionaries like railing against the new regime, even if you can make the case that the new regime is ultimately benevolent, most historical like progressive social changes are accompanied by some level of atrocity that lets or like even some like quote unquote necessary, and you can argue whether it's necessary or not, but like repressions or reprisals or whatever, right? And so like there's always like something of substance for the reactionaries to like point at, or at least like enough that they can say it's of substance, right? But with the Teist, there really isn't anything, right? Like is there anything in history that would match the level of benevolence of the Teist? You know what I mean?
Definitely not. Yeah. Well, okay. As far as I know, not. But you're missing one very important thing. The Teist look different. And it's a facetious thing for to say, but still, racism, right? Like, this is such a deep-seated human thing that, like, it's still, like, something they can point to and be like, you're not being ruled by humans anymore. You're being ruled by these aliens that aren't us. These cold, dark bastards.
Right.
And a dragon.
And yeah, I mean, and that part is the obvious parallel that is part of the obvious parallel I was saying, like, does map on. It's just like, I don't know, the level of benevolence of the Teist is like sort of like nothing we've seen, right? In real life.
It's very deliberately set up to be like, these people have no legitimate grievance. But because humans are so prone to be dissatisfied and prone to romantic notions of the idealized past, that they're going to rebel anyways. And Seerdomin's like, no, please, we have it good right now.
I think it's also like, it sounds like those people who want to rebel, they had some sort of power. Like, they felt more purposeful in the previous empire. And now they're like, well, they lost it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, these were high ups in the Panian Seers Empire.
Yeah, like Erdo, whatever.
Erdomen and Seerdomen and the like.
Yeah.
And Traveler, I think it's Traveler, also talks about how the Malazan style of conquest was like real conquest.
It wasn't occupation, it was conquest.
It wasn't occupation, it was conquest, yeah. So what you do is you attack the centers of power, and then you make life better for everybody else, and you don't impact their lives much beyond that.
Right.
Hey, that's just taken from Rome, which is funny.
Probably Mongolia too, right?
Yeah. They were very. I mean, they did a lot of village slaughters.
They're pretty ruthless and notorious for that. But
yeah, but like at the same time, they were also very tolerant of religions, because their religion was tribal and was linked to the steppe lands. So
they converted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this chapter.
I think my last point here is like with Namander's observation of the impact of Kellic on the people of Bastion. It's very vivid. He said, like, the part in the book is, Namander said nothing, thinking instead of those faces in that mob, the black stains smeared round their mouths, the pits of their eyes, clothed in rags, caked with filth, few children among them, as if the Kellic made them all equal, regardless of age, regardless of any sort of readiness to manage the world and the demands of living. They drank and they starved, and the present was the future, until death stole away that future. A simple trajectory. No worries, no ambitions, no dreams. And what I took away from that is, it seems like this is Erikson's way of portraying alcoholism. Since, I mean, all I know is like this book is dedicated to his father, and his father was an alcoholic. And I'm assuming that Erikson would have seen, like, firsthand what that does to a person.
I agree, but I think it's also calling back to a deep-seated human impulse to just stop caring, and just decide to embrace the suffering, basically, and the chaos, and not try and build anything, not try and do anything, just kind of revel in the horrors of existence.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think it also just addiction more generally.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a connection between Ash is talking about and what people are chasing when they're chasing like drug use. While we were reading this one, like leading up to this episode, my friend who had basically that personality for the last couple of years, like he was like one of these Kellic zombies. He just passed away like in between the last episode and this one. And like it got to the point where I couldn't even like, talk to him anymore because I knew like where it was going. And, every time I talk to him, it's about money and at a certain point, like everybody's tried to help him like a million times over. You got to cut your losses because you can't like substitute yourself for like the giant gaping hole in society that leads to that kind of addiction, right? Or in someone's life or both. And, you got to just kind of move on. But yeah.
Yeah. It's something that I grapple with quite a bit. And the notion, okay, so I've been saying that people in Malazan just need to talk to each other. Sometimes there's nothing to say. And sometimes there's nothing anyone can do to fix what's wrong. And
right.
So, yeah, like I encounter that a lot. Like I struggle with mental health issues and there's nothing that anyone can do functionally. And nothing that anyone can say that'll make me feel better. So the impulse to do what these Kellic drinkers do, to give up, to, all that's associated with it. Like it's a very powerful impulse that you just kind of have to not give into because if you do that, you're just going to hurt people. And at some point, like a lot of people just stop caring, and it's hard to totally fault them there because
it's very tiring to keep fighting it.
It's exhausting. It's so tiring. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like at some point, you just have nothing left to give.
His ex messaged me, and his most recent ex. So she was like, trying to help him like recover and get sober at the lowest points. And I mean, even she had to like bow out because it was just too much. But one of the things she said was like about how much he struggled. And she was just like, well, he's not struggling now. And I was just like, oh my God. And yeah, like it just like that was a bigger gut punch than like any of the reminiscences or any of the other things that anybody said. Was just her saying like, well, he's not struggling anymore. And I was just like, oh my God.
And it hurts knowing that you're hurting people. That's one of the worst parts, right? Like that people really want to help and they can't, and you're like, and they try and you make them feel bad when they can't. Yeah.
Sure, it's hard on the parents too, like we were talking earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to chapter 11?
Reminder that Crone poops on grief.
Yeah.
If that makes you
take
a little
that
happier
grief
after this.
Oh, yeah. I was going to just note that Anda Salon is also ruminating about how, he's found this river. And people told him that it was kind of like Dorsan Rill. I think that's what it's called. From Carcanis. And he looks at it and he's like, that's nothing. That's not a pale shadow. So he actually does have an idealized past that is in many ways true. Because this river isn't Dorsan Rill. Nothing's going to be like Dorsan Rill. Nothing's going to compare to its majesty, and that's gone forever for him.
And
so I think that's a nice counterpoint.
The beginning of the chapter, or maybe it was like the previous chapter, where there was something about expectations. Like expectation is the Ori curse of humanity, which I mean, Endasalon isn't human, but you get the point. One can listen to words and see them as the unfolding of a petal, or indeed the very opposite. Each word bent, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, you can't help but have expectations. Even though you may know that your expectations are going to be wrong. And Animander had already told Endasalon, like, it's not going to be what you think it is when you get to the river.
But I think he also said that you're still going to draw strength from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, hope springs eternal, which is horrible in a lot of ways. You just can't stop it.
11?
Chapter 11? Yeah, chapter 11. Harlow gives his friend new legs. Torvald meets some interesting new co-workers. Curl's bar has some trouble with rowdy patrons. Boy, how are they going to get out of this financial nightmare?
I have a feeling that there's something that Janath wants to talk about.
Yeah, the thing with the, I forget if it was in this conversation or the other, so I saved it for this one. But the Talon Emas guy that now has lava legs was like he and Harlow, I forget who brought it up. I think it was Harlow brought up that there was this like building down there that has been there since before the Talon, and even Raced, as old as Raced is, didn't know what it was. And yeah,
That's not what I was expecting.
I was just kind of what were you expecting?
I was expecting you to bring up the conversation between whether it's worse to kill someone or to increase the price of bread.
Oh yeah. I honestly, if you didn't say that, would have forgotten that was in this chapter and not brought that up. But
yeah, Krupp and Baruch have a conversation.
Yeah, Krupp and Baruch discuss political economy, and I mean, yeah, that was a really cool conversation, and I like how Erikson likes to touch on these sort of moral questions that people who talk about or study this stuff in the modern day, talk themselves to death on and analyze and all of that. I mean, it was a cool scene, but yeah, no, I was more interested by the nerdy lore of like what this building that even Raced's ancient ass didn't know what it was at the time that he was ruling the empire.
Yeah, I think you said in the group chat that it like looked to be fork sale. I think that might be correct. I was thinking he was a Zathanai, but I don't think they built anything that was that big. It might also just be like some ancient precursor race that no one has figured out in Malazan yet. But out of the candidates, probably fork sales. I think that the best candidate, right?
Or Kachane,
the
like
Naruk, maybe.
Well, the thing is that Raced would know. Yeah, Raced might know about the assail stuff because, like, I think they talk about it in this book, but they definitely do in Reaper's Gale. There's like the eternal struggle between the war between the Jaghut and the Forkroll Assail.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. You said it was Kachane Shamal. Sorry.
Yeah, Kachane. Yeah. I think that might be more likely, especially given that we're not that far geographically from where all the Kachane corpses got resurrected in Memories of Ice and stuff. And I don't know, just like, that they were on this world before all the invaders came.
Yeah, so it might be like a buried Skykeep.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And like Raced might not have known about Skykeeps, and that would make sense. And maybe he like got taken down before, or at least this IMAS got buried before there was much interaction between the IMAS and the Kachane, something like that.
Yeah, also the conversation that they had about the Forkroll versus the Jaghut, that was really interesting in my opinion. How the Forkroll Assail, like Jaghut have a problem with arrogance, let's say, but Forkroll Assail, like they think in binaries and they think in incredibly rigid terms, and they hold an intellectual arrogance that's not seen by anyone else in Malazan.
Mm-hmm. That's what makes them so dangerous, because they're also very powerful physically.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. A little bit of setup, let's say. Pay attention to the Forkroll Assail bits, Panda.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll not skim them.
We got Renegade Segula.
Yeah.
Mad run, bad run.
I like the conversation and their outfits.
Like, what the heck is going on?
And the divination dice, as if we didn't have enough divination systems. You got tiles, dice, and
cards,
decks of dragons. Yeah.
Are these people gonna be like meaningful at all to the end of this main series?
To the main series? No.
Yeah.
To the end of the book, yes.
Oh. Okay, fine. I'll pay more attention.
Yeah, I feel like I should probably tell you, Panda, that This book is a series climax in its own right.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind as you're reading.
Okay.
I enjoyed the segment where Torvald sneaks into the house and talks to the lady of the house.
And
yeah. And she's like, I've been watching you this whole time.
Yeah, the angle on the window faces the exact place that you were sneaking up from.
Yeah.
So I saw you just doing the entire thing. Hilarious. And also, are Scorch and Left, are they as incompetent as they seem? Torvald's like, yeah, but you don't really know them, right? Like they're super competent when you get down to it. And she's like, boy, I hope not. Oh, you can leave by the front door, by the way.
I love how they hired them because they're incompetent, and he's like, really, underneath it all, they'll surprise you. And she's like,
They're loyal.
Don't tell me that.
Not what I want to hear.
Why do they want incompetent guards?
Because this was a D&D setup. Right? Like this is like the classic thing. Like there's this shifty, like the players get to this location and there's this, they want to, for some reason, want to find out what's in the mansion. Like the GM throws in like, oh, there's this mysterious castellan that greets you when he's there. And then like later, like some sketchy figures that are apparently legendary fighters are brought in as well. And oh, who's the mistress of the house now? Oh, she's super mysterious. Like totally an organic setup, it feels.
My one of my favorite passages in the whole Book of the Fallen is in this chapter, but it's like a page and a half long, so I'm not going to read it. But the opening with Krupp narrating about like there's no pure imagination or whatever or there's no pure artist than a child that's free to imagine, and he like talks about like how there's, you know, like they're sticks that you would just step over and not even think of, or like the walls of a fortress, and like, you know, he was like going into like all the like just like the beauty of a child being free to unleash their imagination and like kind of explore that fantasy world in their mind. And I just fucking love it. Like it's like one of my favorite passages.
Snell does that too.
Yeah.
The dragons will be witnesses.
Yeah, like it's also just like an interesting artistic point because, since the children don't know that there are these rules of storytelling that you need to follow,
right? Yeah.
They can be so much more magical.
So he continues to rebuff criticisms of his writing style through Krupp's narration, but
yeah.
The whole thing's just an apology for the Carcanus trilogy, which he hasn't even written yet.
Carcanus. Oh, it's so good.
I listened to Niflrog's apology for the Carcanus trilogy the other day, and
doesn't need an apology.
It's pretty much the same thing as what Krupp's saying about a child's imagination. It's a great video.
Shall we talk about the assault on Kroll's bar? Are we ready for that?
No.
Panda, have you emotionally recovered? Probably not.
But we can talk about it.
Fisher gave a good account of himself.
Yeah. Mallet died. Blue Pearl died. So many people died.
Blue Pearl ignored the omens that Kroll was trying to send.
There was that ghost in the cellar when he was like picking up the cask. It's like, oh, I smell a blade or something. Which blade? Was there like a specific blade?
That's important for something else.
No. Okay. Never mind.
Mallet obviously hits harder than Blue Pearl because Blue Pearl was just like a gag in his eyes. And yeah.
Yeah, Mallet
what
was
did he say? Kick open the gate, Whiskey Jack.
Yeah.
Oh.
Died with a grin.
Yeah. Mallet, like he's like one of the most caring characters in the series, right?
But also I was a bit selfish as well because Mallet is so useful. I'm like, this crew like literally made so much use of Mallet, and now he's gone, and I'm like,
they don't have a healer.
Alive because of Mallet.
One of the characters is Barathol. Is like, yeah, I'll be fine once Mallet gets to me, and then Picker's like, sorry, bud.
Yeah, no,
we don't have Mallet anymore.
And Mallet and Barathol and Shower come and save them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mallet is potentially the reason why Apsalar has survived up to this point. Because he strengthened the Wax Witch's spirit, trying to keep Apsalar's psyche together in Gardens of the Moon.
He also saved Ganos.
And Cole.
A big player, but in a very quiet way.
Yep. Also saved Marilio in this book. Of course.
He'll be missed.
Yeah. That I can see where Steve got this inspiration from a certain Steven Spielberg movie.
Huh?
That's
okay.
It's Saving Private Ryan, but
that's
like a spoiler.
I see.
Yeah.
I need to watch that movie again. Medic dies,
I don't know if I can
Yes.
emotionally go through that again.
That was really hard on you, eh?
I recently watched The Fablemans. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It'll come as no surprise that when I read this, I'm of course most worried about Blend and Picker. But
hey,
it's
Blend
also
survived.
I think Blend survived. Yeah, they both survived.
She was badass.
She was. Oh, I love Blend so much. It's very interesting to me that this entire section, this entire book, the Bridgeburners know that this is coming, right? They know, and yet they're taken completely off guard.
Yeah.
Which is they're old soldiers. As much as we want them to be these badasses that are kind of unstoppable, they go down pretty easily at the start of this. I mean, they give good account of themselves, obviously.
Yeah.
And they obviously killed all their attackers. But at the same time, they're caught with their pants down. And that feels really, really bad. Right?
Well, Kroll's Bar felt like a safe place for them. So they were less diligent and alert. But when we saw, in book 1 of this book, where they got away from the assassins, right? And they
killed
surprised them. Yeah. So it was kind of, it was a bit unexpected for me to see this happen.
I think it's interesting that they weren't more on guard, but maybe part of that was them just being well, we can't just be hyper vigilant at all times, so whatever, we're retired, this is not our job anymore.
Yeah. Also, I don't really this is gonna sound callous. I'm not as interested in the Chalice plotline.
No one is. Right? No one.
I like it.
It is.
I like it. I like Crocus. I like Chalice.
I mean, it's sad what the situation she's in. It's just I'm so much more interested in the other parts.
Yeah.
Fair.
And the coalition between Gorlas Vidikas and his friends. That sounds like the first and second triumvirate of Rome. Finger guns at the screen.
Yeah. I'm done with them.
Yeah, they're just not interesting. In the Reaper's Gale episodes, Janath, you said that the Chancellor and the leader of the Patriots, they were just boring, dumb assholes. That's exactly how I feel about Gorlas Vidikas and all of these Darujistan nobility. None of them are interesting at all. They don't have any cool thoughts. They're just boring assholes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
and honestly, with the Patriotists, towards the end it got better because once they had a foil arguing against them, the stuff the foils had to say were interesting. The dialogue was interesting,
Is anybody on the side of rich aristocracy these days? No. There are actual fascists in the world, so the patriotists are still relevant. But Gorlas Vidikas, he's just a rich noble. That's an asshole. That's all he is.
Right.
There's no interesting nuance to his dialogue or philosophy that you have to argue against. It's just no, this is something that's been effectively disproven.
Next chapter.
Yeah, sure. Chapter 12. Crone tells Endus Salon to get back home. Celinda is captured on her way back to the Redeemer. Seer Domans shortly after. Spinek Darav is given his assignment by Enamander. Nimander and Aranatha capture the dying god as Seerdomin defends the Redeemer.
My favorite part of this chapter is Karsa and Traveler being bros.
They're very broy, and their conversations are really fun. And their whole dynamic is just slightly unexpected, but really fun.
Mm-hmm. And then the whole thing about Belladin being the dying god or whatever.
Right? Like it's like totally set up.
It was
like,
weird. It was
probably thinks it's gonna be
confusing.
Hairlock.
Yeah.
I thought it was very exciting.
The build up to it was exciting.
It's
Like,
Belladin?
that's part of it. Okay,
The
right. The idea
reveal.
that it's Belladin is just kind of I don't care.
Yeah.
But
It should have been Hairlock.
it was creepy as hell, and Hairlock was involved. They just got puppets everywhere. The imagery was fantastic. I really enjoyed the spiritual battle that the priestess and Seerdomin were going through, and the interacting with Itkovian as well. So like all of that was really cool, and I agree. Like I told you last episode, like I don't care who the dying god is, and part of that is me knowing who the dying god is.
Yeah. Okay.
But outside of that, I thought it was really cool.
I agree with you. I really do agree with you. Like everything leading up and surrounding it was really interesting. That reveal was just so anticlimactic. And I was like, also how?
Okay. So I think that if anybody had cared at all about Belladin, then it would have been very good. No one cares about Belladin because he wasn't really a character. But thematically speaking, he is a good choice for the themes of the book because everybody is dealing with people turning away from them. Harlow, his mother turned away from him. The Teist, their mother turned away from them. Seerdomin turned away from the Redeemer. You see what I'm saying? Like, Crocus turned away from Solara. Everybody is dealing with the rejection of somebody. And Belladin was kind of rejected by Nightchill. Like, turned aside and shunted out. So as a continuation of that theme, he works really well. Here, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Earlier you said Belladin was not a character. I disagree. I thought he was pretty, for the amount of time that he had on page in Gardens of the Moon, he was actually quite interesting. Second of all, I think it works for this book because a large part of this book is about grief, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I think Belladin, I guess after Fat Lady.
Tattersail?
After Tattersail is the first person we've seen that really experiences a deep grief. And so it works there as well.
Yeah. So like again, like thematically this works, but like at this point in the series, like if you don't know that it's coming, like do you care about Belladin? Yeah.
He had to dig really deep to pull this one out.
Yes.
Agreed.
So like if this took place like after Gardens of the Moon, like if the next book was Gardens of the Moon and then Belladin shows up, then I think that people would care more. But it's been 7 it's been 7 books and thousands of pages.
And also, we had this whole thing with, Nightchill, Tattersail, Belladin, and Silver Fox. And I was like, okay, cool. They're gone now. They're done. And then this happens. I'm like, what? So is it that, like, Nightchill ejected Belladin from Silver Fox or something?
They said they rejected this part of Belladin, and he found Hairlock at the Abyss and then tried to imitate his puppeting abilities. And so I think actually a part of him is still probably a part of Silver Fox, but I guess she didn't like this bit, and he was tossed aside and fell into grief and hatred.
I see. Yeah, it wasn't...
Something... I think I agree. Aranatha, there's something more to her.
Yeah.
I love Aranatha in this.
I don't know what.
We haven't talked about the Redeemer at all in this chapter. So he gets Seerdomin to defend him from Celind, who just wants answers, right? She was going there to force answers out of him, and then she got essentially raped, right? Like this is the point where they forced the Salmon Kellic into her. That's actually one of the more painful moments in the series for me because it's like such a profound violation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
like
agree.
in all the ways, because like I think it's implied later that Gadrethin rapes her.
Well, it was.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, I
But
guess
yeah,
it is
forcing
kind
someone
of
into
a.
addiction is one of the worst things you could do.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of a rape because she wasn't of the right mind. Like she was definitely under the influence.
Yeah, and like the salmon kellic, like it changes who you are. Like this, it's like more of a profound drug than like anything that we have, I think. But like, just imagine like holding someone down and injecting heroin into their veins and like
Yeah.
making them a heroin addict. Like it's worse than that.
And people do that.
Absolutely. And so like it's really really hard to read.
Yeah,
For me
I
at least.
agree.
And then like later like Serodomin has to contest with her corrupted impulses. Which is also really hard because she has a right to be pissed at the Redeemer, I think. And to get the answers from him that he doesn't have. Right? Like he's
all I do is I redeem people. What do you want from me?
Exactly. Like, and he knows, he is fully aware of the problems with the cult that's forming around him. But because of his own nature, he can't do anything about it. And part of that is because people are forcing these beliefs onto him. So he needs Serodomin. And Serodomin like tells him like, if you had been anything other than like completely humble right now, then I would have just told you to screw off. But because you have a little bit of humility, I'm going to do my best to defend you, and he does, which is really nice.
Yeah. There was a lot of commentary on organized religion in the section.
A lot.
Yep.
Everything surrounding the dying god and the Redeemer, and even Anima Rake to a certain extent, is about organized religion.
Yep. Yeah, and Selind was thinking the cult that's going to form around here, it needs a doctrine and it needs some organization, but the priests are going to recognize that there is something fundamentally cynical about this, and they're going to become cynical themselves. And I can enforce standards for like a generation, but after that, there's nothing that can be done. Right? Like eventually, the priests are going to realize this, and that's going to leave the religion rotten from the inside out. And oh boy, that feels very burdened. Let's just say
it's definitely something that I struggle with quite a bit. Yeah.
Me too.
Sorry, one more thing about the religion part is there was this line. I can't remember who said it or thought it, but it's were prayers nothing more than attempted bargains, a pathetic assertion of some kind of reciprocity. And I'm just like, yeah. Oftentimes when people are praying, they're asking for things.
Yeah, like you see this all the time in like media for sure, right? Like an atheistic.
That's the only thing that ever.
Like,
it's the only time anyone ever prays in media. I'd say 99% of cases is like, oh, please
absolutely.
God, ask.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It just really seems cynical to me.
And yeah, the tension between give and take is also explored a lot in these. Like the Salmon Kellic is a really good metaphor for it, because you can also read Salmon Kellic as a metaphor for religious zealotry, right? Like you put all of your cares and all of your worries onto this thing, this idea or deity that you're worshiping, and then you don't worry about anything else. You just try and follow the doctrine, and that's it. And there's a lot of ecstasy that can be found in religious service.
Yep.
Right? Like no one would disagree with that. And it can lead you to do some horrible things, as we've seen throughout history and through this series.
What was it? I think it's kind of tangentially related. Yoko Taro once said that the only it doesn't take a crazy person to murder someone. It just takes somebody who thinks that they are right.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yoko Taro is a pretty smart dude.
Yeah, like there's like even smart people fall for this, right? Like not that he was falling for anything, but like these are these are not new problems, and yet like we have not come anywhere close to solving them as a species.
I don't think it's gonna be solved. I think it's part of it is just human nature.
Yeah, like short of like profound biohacking, which we're not close to, as far as I know. But short of someone like going into the human brain and changing its nature, like these are things that we're just going to have to deal with and reconcile and find a way to like be good to each other, right?
Speaking of being good to each other, Clip is really the worst.
He is.
These people went through so much for him.
And he just treats them terribly.
He wakes up and he's just like, he's right back to the same.
Yep.
Yeah. Him and Snell would actually be good friends, I think. Well, they would probably kill each other, but they're kindred spirits.
That was my last
I like
note.
Theodomin's thoughts about soldiers who fought in an unjust war. And it really, I think at the end of World War II, I'm not going to go into what a just war and an unjust war is, if there is such a thing. But at the end of World War II, I think the people there at least felt that they accomplished something, some good, at least from the Allies' perspective, whether that just be from propaganda or whatnot. Like, I think it'd be hard to argue against it in certain circumstances, right? But then, especially most modern wars, people just come after feeling hatred for themselves, feeling jaded, feeling that they didn't actually accomplish anything good and were just simply pawns to be used by more powerful peoples, and what that could do to an individual's psyche. I just thought it was pretty profound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like at the end of World War II, they could be like, well, we stopped the Holocaust, or we stopped.
All that's coming after the fact too. It's not
Absolutely.
like they're like, oh, let's fight the Holocaust, or let's stop the rape of Nanking or whatever.
Yeah, or Unit 731, or all these like.
When at the beginning, it's really just let's protect British investments overseas.
Yep. And the concept of just and unjust wars is a really interesting one, and definitely in modern day, it's very hard to see any real conflicts where it's you could argue that's a just war.
Should we get to listener questions?
Yes.
We answered some of these, but Sun Gamer also asked what we think of Namander. His self-doubt is intense, but is he right about himself? Do you guys want to pick it?
we're told by the people around him that he's not, right? Like all of the Teists that are following him think, well, Namander is the exception to the rules. Namander is the exceptional ruler. I think Kedinvis or Desra, I don't remember which, is thinking that like if for people there are two relationships with power, basically there's like the bullies and then there's the victims. Maybe I'm butchering this. But very occasionally there's a third person who has power and sometimes uses it, but isn't a bully, who doesn't relish having power over others. And that's
a reluctant ruler.
Yeah. A philosopher king, if you will.
They're following because they believe in him, and he's filled with self-doubt. And I mean, it's a lot of parallels to exactly how Anamander's treated, except we're actually given the insight into Anamander's mind. It's like when Endus is talking to Anamander, he's just like, oh my god, you know everything, you know this, you're more forgiving than me. But I just see Anamander in Anamander. And the people around him put absolute faith in him, while inside he's just self-doubting. And I think self-doubt is just a really important thing for a leader.
Well, as far as the philosopher king goes, that's what Plato said the criteria was. You have to elect someone who doesn't want to lead.
Yeah.
Namander doesn't want to lead. Anamander definitely doesn't want to lead. I also really like the scene where Spinnock is getting his assignment from Anamander, and he's thinking to himself, I could say that I need to rescue Selend right now. And then Anamander would say, of course, my friend, you have to do this for love. I will take this burden upon myself, and you need to go do this. And then Spinnock, makes a conscious decision not to, because he knows that whatever Anamander is doing is the right thing, or he thinks that's what
he knows Anamander needs him, and he knows at a drop of a hat Anamander would do the same thing for him.
Yes, and that's
what he wants.
That's probably why Spinnock and the other Teist follow Anamander so through everything, right? Like through their millennia-long ennui, and the fact that they themselves can't see a point in anything they're doing. It's because like Animander, like he wouldn't ask them to do something that they wouldn't do themselves, and he would do anything for them.
I have nothing more to add to that. Jingles90 says, what do you think Erikson means by the title of this book, Cold-Eyed Virtues? How does that theme play out in these chapters?
It's a really good question.
I don't know if
I
I'm
have an
smart
idea.
enough to answer. Go ahead.
I'm probably wrong, but I think it's referring to the mostly hands-off approach that the Tai Standi take in governance. So it ends in chapter 11 or chapter 12 of Animander talking with Solana, and they recognize everything that's happening. He sees what's happening. He's not indifferent, but he lets it happen. And I get the feeling that, especially because Seer Domin is basically doing all of the vigilante justice in this city, even though the Andy, and I get the feeling that Animander knows what's going on, yet not doing anything about it, because he sees self-governance or freedom or liberty or whatever you want to say as a virtue. I'm probably wrong, but
yeah, he's giving. Seer Domin says that in large part he's doing this because he wants to prove to the Andy that occasionally humans can clean up their own messes, and Animander, in some part, is giving them the room to grow into their own because he knows that he's like that this is not forever, right? Like the citizens are not always going to have a dragon literally watching over them. So yeah, he's giving them space to grow. Cold-eyed virtues, I think that's also a deliberate juxtaposition because like none of these people are cold inherently. Like they're all feeling very deeply about what's happening, and while it may appear to others that they're being cold about it, it's actually it's actually kind of the reverse. They care so much that they realize the reasons why they can't just do everything themselves, like Animander.
I guess that's kind of like how parents, like as you watch your kids grow, like you have to let them make their own mistakes, let them make their decisions, and you know, for example, if like a child falls and cries, right? You know, there's like a philosophy of parenting where it's like, don't coddle the child. Instead, like help the child get back up and like, you know, let them feel that pain because that does help them grow. And then they learn to not do that again. So on the outside, it could seem pretty, you know, cold, but instead it's actually a gift.
Yeah. And at the same time, in the camp of the Redeemer, we see what's happening.
Yeah.
Like children are being raped. Like Celine thinks that like all the women, all the children, besides her, because she's a child of the Dead Seed, they've all been exploited and abused, and yet nothing's been done. And like we can talk about how like this is a virtue by Animander, but at the same time, like that doesn't help these people.
Right.
So there's a very strong tension there, and it's ameliorated in some part because Animander is obviously not an omnipotent god, so he can't be expected to solve everything. But like this does also introduce one of the so-called theodicies, the problem of evil, right? Like why does Animander could stop this at any time? We hear that he knows everything that's going on. Why does he let it happen? And the people have to deal with this. The fact
I mean, that's a question that Lady Sweden asks, like with Rake and Crow knowing and seeing a lot, why don't they do something about the dying god? The Andy take a lot of responsibility on themselves, why not the dying god? I mean, we kind of answer that already. And I also think it's it goes back to the last episode where we discussed where like the pilgrims of the Redeemer wanted Salan, the high priestess, to go to Seer Domin and ask him to help take care of the stupid dude. I don't Gadgethuran, whatever his name is.
Or I don't know what.
Yeah.
Evil man.
Man. And Selena's like, why can't you do something about it yourself? And so that's kind of also the theme of like, sure, somebody can come in and save you, or you can also save yourself.
Hopefully.
Well, at least try.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a very nitpicky technical thing. At near the beginning of this book, we're told that Solana is watching and she sees everything, even though she's statuesque. At one point, one of the people in the Cult of Redeemer, one of the evil guys, looks up to the dragon and is like, oh, that's a stupid statue. And then it goes to Solana's perspective, and then it's like, oh, but Solana saw everything, and that if he had known her cold-eyed regard was on him, then he wouldn't have done this. To me, that feels like a little bit of clunky writing. I feel like Steve could have just left it like he looked at the dragon and thought what a stupid statue she was, and then had the scene with Animander restraining Solana later. So there we go. A little bit of criticism of the literary technique. We can call ourselves a high-brow podcast now.
You don't think my Taylor Swift commentary made us
sorry. No, I'm so sorry. That was absolutely.
Come on.
That was absolutely actually a good point.
I'm kidding.
And I'm not. It was a good thing to bring up.
I agree. Are you enjoying it?
I'm going to say yes. I think, like, I just really want to know what happens in the plot, and I want more time with the characters that I enjoy. But, I mean, yeah, there are parts where I'm just like, okay, let me just, move it along. But, I mean, overall, like, I don't hate it. I don't regret reading it. I just want to know what happens.
Yeah. The climax of this book is really good.
I'm waiting.
Okay. That concludes this episode. If you want to join the read along and or contribute listener questions, check us out in the Legendarium's Discord. You can find us the link on legendarium.com. Also follow us on Twitter at Green Team Pod for updates and fun times. Check out the Legendarium podcast for Wheel of Time, Cosmere, Lord of the Rings content, and so much more. Thank you to our panelists, Ashaman, Janath as a boy, and Befuddled Panda. I'm Hurinfan. Until next time.
Bye. Pew pew.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
Oh my god.